All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to open up the Public Safety Committee meeting. Roll call.
Alderman Fisher. Alderman Mayfield.
Present.
Alderman Evans. Alderman Allen. Alderman Markham. Alderman Runnels.
Here.
Alderman January.
Okay, we have one item, review of the 911 dispatch consolidation resolution.
At the last meeting, we had the county here to talk about consolidated dispatch, and we talked about the resolution and the next steps. So I'm just here to answer any questions that you may have.
Turn on the microphone. I forget. It's underneath. Sorry. I forgot to. Underneath, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, now can you hear me?
We can
All right, good. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. And the resolution is on for passage for tonight. There has been some discussion. I just want you to know that this does seem to be the future and to be the trend. There was some discussion on whether or not this would be an issue because we do have the Navy base here. The Navy is consolidating their dispatch center. Their dispatch center will be consolidated this May, and they will be dispatched out of Virginia.
Oh, the Navy's going to be dispatching out of Virginia?
Yes. And
Okay.
on May 7th, Captain Hawkins will be here, and he will, it's his change of command, and he'll be able to answer any questions about their dispatch center at that time. He will be saying farewell to us and introducing us to the new commanding officer.
Okay. All righty. Any questions, council? Alderman Markham?
Just one, you may not know it. But they'll still be connected to North Chicago Police Department as far as dispatch.
Everything will work the same way as it does
Right.
now, and so our dispatch center, which currently dispatches for the housing that's outside of the gate,
Right.
will still work the same. They're
Okay.
just going to be in a different geographic location.
Okay.
And they dispatch behind the gate.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Well, thank you,
Good.
Deb.
Okay,
I think
thank you.
I think this group is good.
Yeah.
okay.
So, okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the Public Safety Committee meeting.
So move.
Moved in second. Roll call.
Alderman Fisher. Alderman Mayfield.
Aye.
Alderman Evans. Alderman Allen. Alderman Markham.
Aye.
Alderman Runnels.
Aye.
Alderman January.
I'd like to open up the Finance Committee meeting. Roll call.
Alderman Fisher. Alderman Fisher.
She calling you. You gotta say present.
Alderman Fisher.
Present.
Alderman Mayfield.
Present.
Alderman Evans. Alderman Allen. Alderman Markham.
Present.
Alderman Runnels.
Here.
Alderman January.
A four-item agenda. Item 1, discussion, resolution, reallocating 2018 private activity bond cap amount, Village of Buffalo Grove. 2, review, consideration, engagement with Eilers, RFP bond refunding. 3, review, discussion, fund balance, policy resolution. Finally, 4, budget FY 2019, Part 1. Daniela, good evening.
Good evening. It relates to the 2018 private activity bond, this is an annual resolution that the board has passed in the past, and it basically allocates funds for use on the private activity. It is based on residents, and the amount set per resident is equal to $105 per resident. So that would be for $3,420,270.
Questions, anyone? Proceed.
Following is
Do you have your?
regarding engagement with Ellers regarding the RFP for refunding. Staff is looking for approval to move forward with this refunding and engage Ellers as the city's financial advisor. As discussed at the last meeting, the refunding will save dollars for the city while not extending years of debt, as presented at the last meeting. And I believe Board has received a copy, an updated copy of outstanding debt as of 3/1/2018.
Questions, anyone?
Tonight, staff is also asking for a resolution and consideration of adopting a fund balance policy as presented at the last meeting. Resolution has been attached together with the draft policy. Nothing has changed from the March 5th presentation. It is still general fund between 30 and 40%.
This one right here.
And the enterprise funds at least 60 days of operating revenue. And as discussed, we have, the enterprise fund has always had enough cash and reserves, well over the 60 days.
Questions? Proceed, Daniela.
I've left copies of the presentation for you. Staff, and as well as I am pleased to submit for your review the fiscal year 19 budget. It is our financial plan, and it allows for the ability to adjust expenses as anticipated needs arises. We have, and the general fund side, we have stayed within the GFA bond balance guidelines, which is at a minimum of 25%, so we're well above that. The plan is a collaboration of all the departments with mainly changes, reductions, and much give and take, and yet conservative in nature. At this time, I wish to thank all the department heads and the various people that work, that also helped the department heads in getting this project together. It started back January 2nd, my, I guess, first official day as the interim comptroller, so we've been on the fast track. But we have been able to produce this report on time, and hopefully will please you. So the format, there's uniformity in the way the budget is presented, uniformity in the slide presentation. It is more descriptive. We have created divisions within the economic development, which helps we have better control of our expenses within the different divisions, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. We've also reallocated expenses dependent on the departmental functions, which again gives more accountability to the departments that are really involved in that particular expense. This is the document you received via email, not the presentation, is really the heart of the budget. We have included details of individual line items, so it gives you a better perspective of what's included within that general line item. And gives us anticipated expenses, not always what can occur during the fiscal year, and it's something to keep in mind. And that is why this plan is flexible, and it allows the departments to defer one expense for another with more urgency because of unanticipated occurrence, and sometimes mandated by federal or state. Again, fund balances are within the recommended balances. So the budget process, several steps. And as I said, we started this process back in January. We reclassified items where needed. Comptroller's office did the year-to-date projection known at that time, which typically is at the six-month mark, which would be October. But as the months go by, we have recalculated, reviewed, reanalyzed. So it's a constant reviewing. And not only do we look at 6 month, but we also look at year-to-date, as well as look at historical information and balances. So gives us a better projection. Worked extensively with the departments for their input as to what they would like to see as far as changes, and what we feel gives us better accountability. Budget worksheets were distributed. We've implemented, or we started to implement a project for a 5-year capital improvement plan that is still in development stages, but this is kind of like step one, is for departments to kind of put on paper, these are kind of the capital outlays that we will need, not only today, next year, but in years going forward, which will be the basis for our CIP plan. Once everything was completed, we needed to just compile it all so that the departments could discuss the budget. At that point, when we met, I deferred all capital outlay, even though I had the information so that we knew exactly where we stood as far as revenues over expenditures. At that point, then, departments were asked to re-review their expense requests. We reconvened further discussions and then redistributed the new budget request. We continued to make refinements and added back capital requests as funds were made available. So here are just some of the things, how we approached this budget this year. Highlights: no property tax increase for the general fund, increase of property tax as it relates to the fire and pension funds, and this you passed in December of 2017, so it incorporates those numbers in our budgets. We made an assumption of relatively static revenue sources, with the exception of state disbursements to the city, because there's going to be a 10% reduction in our income tax and a 2% administrative fee reduction to our sales tax. It includes the city salary ordinance increases to mirror in all current contracts. And there has been an increase to contribution from the water and sewer funds. We simplified the economic, just to go back a little bit, the total approximate amount that we are expecting a decrease in these state disbursements of about $380,000. Economic development has been created into 3 separate divisions: the building divisions, facilities management, and planning division. There was a compilation and a detailed staffing and fringe benefit report, so we could have a better handle on how to allocate within the departments. Last year, the city established the engineering department. And we found that it wasn't utilized, but that services were being put in the departments. So we've made change, which doesn't change dollar amounts, but basically we have engineering services in all the various departments that use them. Economic development is a good one, water and sewer in all their respective areas will have an engineering services. In some cases, their expense directly related to the city, and in other cases, they're expenses that we are going to be reimbursed by various projects and developments going through economic development. The library fund is not included at this point within our budget. We have not received any budget numbers, hoping we will have their budget for the next meeting. This is kind of a highlight of general fund revenues. The fiscal year 18 are the totals, the amounts we are projecting we will receive. And fiscal year 19 is what we are also anticipating and projecting to receive. Overall, you can see that there is a difference of about 726,000. The two largest categories with the largest increases, property tax and miscellaneous revenue. Those are the big, it looks small, the property tax, but you have to take into consideration that it really is for the benefit of firefighters and pension funds. Okay. What makes the increase, our miscellaneous revenue is that we are putting the reimbursement from the developments for services rendered, because we have a cost recovery agreement that was put in effect for sure last year. Okay. So we'll be offsetting our expense with the reimbursements. Just same information, just in graphs, and it actually will give you a better visual on how all the different categories account for within the general fund revenues. As you can see in ranked order, intergovernmental taxes, property, transfers in, and local taxes. Those are the major general fund revenue categories.
Go back to that miscellaneous again. Explain it to me again, miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous, what, sure. For instance, we have a project, a big developer comes in, there are planning review fees, engineering review fees, maybe re-inspections, whatever we may have. We now have cost recovery agreements so that we can get reimbursed for most of those expenses. So what you almost have is equal expense offset by equal revenue, so it's a net effect of close to zero.
So you're trying to say you just put money,
Yeah, they encompass engineering, legal, planning review, re-inspections, inspections, all those things that go into finishing and the project. So those are gonna be reimbursed by the developer.
so is that a good way of doing that, putting in miscellaneous? That way,
It's not, okay, so let me just, okay. So,
that's what, I'm just saying, you put miscellaneous,
it's a miscellaneous category. Within that miscellaneous category, you have a lot of line items, And as we go, I'll refer back to this
Okay,
when we get into those departments, because then you'll see it.
okay, because I just don't like to see
No, it's not
that
just,
kind of money in miscellaneous.
no, it's a category. Accounting standards, we give categories to both expenses and revenues so that we can better see where funds are coming from. And miscellaneous is simply a category that encompasses things that don't fall into licenses or into fines. They're just there. It's other line items, but you'll see them all listed in detail. I'll go back to that, and if I forget, remind me. Okay.
What difference make you put in, if it's in the general fund versus in the miscellaneous, it's still coming out of the budget, so why are we putting?
Well, when we get reimbursed, accounting-wise, auditing-wise, revenue should be recorded as revenues and expenses should be recorded as expenses. A lot of times what happens is we book the expense, and then when we get a reimbursement, should we get one, it reduces that expense. Better for transparency, better for control, and the auditors look for those kinds of things to be separated out. Okay? But I'll get,
Okay, I just want to
Okay.
see.
budget comparison between fiscal year 18 and versus, fiscal year 19. By the way, if you notice on the screen as well as on your handouts, that you can always refer to the budget summary page. I've noted it on there in the bottom left corner. Okay? So if you go to your, the packet that you received,
Which page is it?
I'll show you. I'll pull one page out.
There's a lot of pages.
There were 86 pages to the detail.
Okay.
So if you look at these, okay, but it won't be in there, it would be, that was a separate enclosure with your packet.
What page number was that?
That one is, it's page 2, and that page, I will show you what it looks like so you can see it. You can pass it around, but it says general fund summary, and it's kind of, you have it? It's on page 2.
Right, this is
You got it?
what she's talking about.
It would be this page. It looks like this. Page 2.
Yep. Let's get into this page. But this was in the,
It
was
was
in
in
the packet.
too. All right. Okay, this is what it looks like. Okay. So, as we, again, the contractual services is kind of the offset, the expense side of the offset for the reimbursement on the revenue side. So that's where all those numbers are coming in from. Basically, the increase between last year, or this current year's budget that was approved last year and this proposed and draft budget is 1.16%. translates to about 300,000. There's been a slight increase in capital projects of $10,000. As you can, and we've been very conservative with our expenses as well as our revenues. And if you wanted to know what our pie charts look like, personnel fringe benefits are at 72.59, which is a slight reduction from last year. And all the other different categories. As we had expected, personnel and fringe benefits as well as contractual programs are the categories with the most impact on our annual budget.
That's it.
On that page 2, you'll see that I was referring to, you'll see in 3 different sections, viewed in 3 different ways. Revenues, expense by category, and expense by department. In the general, again, we're just talking general fund. Some of the changes that have occurred, employment testing previously in administrative services went to the HR function. Auditing, payroll, and bank service charges moved again from administrative services to comptroller. And that accounts for some of the changes. Okay, here we go. Mayor's Department. What we've done here, the city has a student youth program, employment program, that is funded by grants from other organizations. We do hire some of the students. They have their own line items, salaries and fringe benefits for student youth program, so we can account for it. And there's also a student youth expense for other expenses that occurs with that program. That is offset at the current time on this year's budget by $19,000 that we are estimating will be received by corporations. However, having looked at historical information, the balance is funded by a leftover, by accumulations from previous years. So in essence, it's a net zero impact to the mayor's department. Okay. Clerk's office, there's really nothing of big to note. Basic increase was in the salary and fringe benefit section. Legislative. Increase comes from a 50% contribution for the Blackboard Connect, which is our robocalls. The other 50% is carried in the E911 fund. Previously, it was in the fire department general fund budget. What's happened, if you go to page 10 of the budget, your detail, you'll see that now there are detailed expense allocations by wards. So every ward will have its own.
About time.
It's him.
Since
Every
mine's been
ward
used
will have
every
its own
year.
for travel and training, as well as miscellaneous expense.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Now, under the actual fiscal year 2017, you have a lump sum at the travel and training.
Sure.
You weren't able to break that down per ward?
I think there was a report that was
It's
previously,
page 10.
given to the city council by the previous comptroller.
You see,
I don't recall that.
Okay,
it's in here.
this is what I was made to understand, but I can certainly give you that report that was done through December, I believe.
Yes, because it's, I understand everything that you're doing, it's excellent, but it's just the fact that it should be broken down, that $37,482 should be divided between to let, so we can see,
According to the expenses.
right, the 2017 actual expenses.
We'll make a note, and we'll make sure that you have it for the next board meeting, how that is.
Yeah, and also with the miscellaneous expense,
I
It's
presume
Ronald.
that.
right. But with that miscellaneous,
We all-
that's incorporating
You can see.
ward meetings and all of that.
Yes. Whatever
But-
expense has been allocated to that line item.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Ronald?
Alderman Allen.
I just wanted to clarify this. Each ward gonna get, you're saying $2,500, right?
Yes.
All right, you saying that's in your travel and training too?
Now, there's two line items.
Okay, I just wanna make sure.
Above that is the travel and training.
There's a travel and training up on top, and then miscellaneous expense a little bit further down on page 10.
So, Alderman Reynolds,
Yes.
here's the question, so you put a limit at this, for some it works for some wards and some it doesn't. So where did you come up with this number from?
Basically, we level funded for, or close to level funded to what it was this last fiscal year.
So, but you limit some of us that's doing things outside of the, city. So when you say, if you say each person get 2,500 for a ward,
travel.
I'm talking about for a ward meeting. This
That
is
would
for-
go under miscellaneous expense, which is $48.50.
Okay, so you saying you get 2,500 for travel?
32.
32 for travel.
2,500 for miscellaneous expense.
And once you come to that number, then what?
I don't understand.
Out of curiosity, I know if you have that, if you go over that 3,200, then what? Do someone needs to sign off on it, or how does that work?
The sign
It
off
doesn't,
with,
if you don't go up to 3,200, or if you happen to go over 3,200, that's my question.
what happened?
Yes, what's the next procedure after that?
At this point, we just basically, we just record it. At some point, some decision will have to be made, and that would be, how to do it.
So, the document that the comptroller is reviewing is the budget, which is a business plan.
Right.
So that's the goal that the city's aiming to operate by. There's a separate document, which is the appropriation ordinance, which has to be adopted by the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year. That sets the legal limit of the spending authority.
Okay.
So if you exceed the budget, but you're within the appropriation, then the city might have a policy of what steps have to be taken to identify the changes to the budget. If you want to exceed the appropriation, the city council has to approve a change to the appropriation, because that's the legal limit of what you're allowed to spend.
Okay. Well, I know,
Exactly what he's speaking of, though.
right.
Because I think what the alderman is saying, I think we all know, is that in his budget regarding travel and training and miscellaneous expenses, if he goes, or any alderman goes over that limit, at that point, what happens? That's what the question is.
That's the question.
It will depend on whether or not, the policy the city adopts allows for travel and training to be traded between wards, and also whether or not the appropriation for travel and training for the legislative branch is a lump sum, or if it's broken down by individual wards. It depends on the level of control that's adopted. The more specific the level of control, the more changes might be required. The more general the level of control, the easier it is to move things between wards.
Alderman Mayfield.
You know, in the past, we've kind of been blind to, you know, what, I mean, we have an idea of what we spend, but going forward, will we be able to get maybe monthly or at least quarterly, probably monthly, reports on what each alderman is spending?
Yes.
Great. Thanks.
Any other questions regarding?
So, I'm just gonna speak it up right now. I keep it real. So, if, I don't know who came up with this idea about breaking it up like that. It always been in one bunch, it always been the same way, and if, I wanna keep it that way. If someone don't wanna go, they don't have to go. But I may wanna go to travel, to go to DC, it costs us almost $1,500 just to go out there and stay in. So, I'm gonna be open minded that one trip there. So, I'm just speaking from all now. They want to vote for it, it's fine, I'm just saying.
The only change that's occurred in the law that might influence how this is prepared
Yeah.
is that there was the Local Government Travel Reimbursement Control Act that requires all of the elected officials' travel expenses to be approved
Right.
separately by the city council. And so it's helpful to identify what represents travel and training,
Yeah.
because that falls within the scope of that law, whereas your ward meetings don't fall within the scope of that statute. So we don't have to have a roll call vote to fund a ward meeting. There has to be city council approval as part of the warrant list to approve travel and training expenses. So that's why it might make sense to identify them separately in different categories, because of the level of control the statute requires.
So we've been doing illegal all.
No, the law just changed. The law just changed last year.
So,
Question.
question. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. So when you have a bill run and it shows that
That's what I was just
the
gonna
aldermen
ask.
are traveling to wherever, if you okay the bill run, you're basically okay in the fact that you're okay in them to travel.
That's right.
Okay. So if anyone sees something that they question in that bill run, then they could pull it out or question and bring it to a vote off the council itself.
Alderman?
Are we setting exact limits where you're not supposed to go over that, the amount that you were
Sense.
given? That's what, I don't see where it should go over that, me personally. If you get to that point and you're out of money, that's it, sit down.
That's about it.
Same thing if you get paid, it's the same thing. You don't jump over in some other area and grab some money unless you make a loan.
Right.
Then we have to start charging interest, you know.
Alderman Markham?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. My question is the amounts that you set here. Now, this is what is already taking place, right? Because you had the 22,000 for, which is budgeted.
It's very close, yes.
That's
I
ba-
rounded it.
right. So this is basically what was for last year.
Yes,
So what you did was just divide those numbers by 7.
Right.
What was actually budgeted in the last budget. So you didn't decrease anything.
No.
So basically, last year, or the last budget, I, as an alderman, to travel, should have only stayed at $3,200. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
And that was already in the budget for last year. You just carried it over to this year. Is that, that's,
Yes.
okay. Next thing, same thing for the miscellaneous. Because you weren't here, but a couple of years back, I had asked that could funds from whatever expense, travel expense that I had, be transferred over to, for the ward, for something I wanted to do in the ward, and I was told I could not do that. Because, you know, at that particular time, that's what they told me. So I had to stay within the framework, what was given to me. So now, basically, what the numbers of $2,500 you have down here is what was from the last budget. Let me say, divided by,
Divided by seven,
right.
yes.
2,500, to multiply by 7 is what you actually had from last year's budget. You're just carrying it over to this year.
Yes.
So now the 37,482 going back up to the travel and training. Once you divide that out,
Well, that is, if you look under that column, that
Uh-huh.
is actually what was spent in 2017. These are audited numbers.
right, that's what, I understand that. So what I'm saying is, back up at the travel and training of the $37,482, that's actual. And so, once you divide that out,
It becomes a lot higher, absolutely, than the 3,200 that
right,
we are budgeting.
correct. So, basically, though, travel and training was already over budgeted already.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
and it will be this year,
And it will be this year.
yes.
Hold on.
So basically, what needs to happen is, since you dividing it into 7 to each individual, and we know each individual is not gonna use this amount for travel and training. So why don't we just keep it like it is instead of trying to break it into, I can understand the ward meetings, cause some people do have them and some go up to 25, I guess, I don't know. But it's not making any sense if you're gonna try to divide it up and everybody's not gonna use it. So what happens to the money that's not being used?
Stay in the general fund.
Basically, it doesn't carry over at the end of the year. You're gonna be under for people that don't use it. That means that there's going to be that much more in, for next year's budget, if you need it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Here's the thing, this is a plan that is being submitted from staff. Some with, obviously with some of the things, I was given a direction as well, okay? However, you, as the council, have the opportunity to make changes, to review, comment, add, delete. So this is going to be your decision as to what you do. This is simply our proposal.
Right.
Based on information that I have, and tasks I had been given,
Okay,
okay?
easy enough.
Okay.
Mayor?
So what you're saying is, if there wants to be a change, it should be brought to, by this council now, and so that they'll know what they're voting on to get the budget passed. So if you're saying you want to lump it, and if the majority says that's how you want to lump it, then that should be brought now, or if you want to keep it as individuals, it should be brought that way now and move forward, so staff will know which direction to go.
And/or increases or decreases to the amounts, both.
Well,
I think I think we have made this budget, we've improved in its transparency.
Yes.
And these are just some of the line items that have made that we've made changes to, or proposed changes to. And it went through organization-wide, so
Okay.
it's not that we picked anybody in particular.
right, no, we're not saying that.
I just want to make it clear that this has to do with transparency and accountability.
Right,
Right.
And we're all accountable, and we all want to be transparent,
right.
so.
So maybe, should we decide at this time? Should we decide at this time?
Well, I can take,
Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
Can I go through the whole
Yes,
presentation?
yes.
Until
then-
you see the final numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can discuss any changes, or you can take time, and then we'll make the changes for the following week. Or the
Gotcha.
following week. Keep that, just,
keep it in mind.
let's go through this and see where our budget goes. Administrative services, there has been a reduction. not as much as we'd like it to be reduced, but we have had some increases in some of the,
Did you hit treasurers already?
part.
You did treasurers? I see treasurer's office.
It's coming up.
Oh, okay. On mine it had,
I
okay,
think,
okay. No, go
I
ahead.
think you were used to a different, order. I kind of went by department numerical as much as I could, so it
Okay.
might be a little bit out of order.
No problem.
To what you're used to. Those are some of the reductions, audit payroll services, to controller, employment testing to human resources, and electric utilities. That is being decreased a lot because the street lighting has been moved to the motor fuel tax. Comptroller. Oh. Did I go, hold on, treasures, sorry.
That of you.
There's nothing to say. All right, any questions there?
Thank you, Ken.
Mr. Robinson?
Okay. Administrative services, I've gone through that. Highlights of the comptroller's budget is strictly,
Over.
it is over. But it's because we moved several line items over to this, contractual. As you can see, we used to budget 8,500 and we're now budgeting 259,700, which is a lot of the moving of things around. I am requesting phase one for a new financial software. I know we were down this road back in 2015.
Yes.
It really has become apparent that our software is sorely outdated. We do not get really good reports in a readable format that can be easily submitted to council, to the departments, their budget reports. When we have to do any analysis, it becomes really difficult. Besides the fact that the account structure right now is 4-digit structures for revenue accounts or expenses really don't give us a lot of room for expansion. And the new ones are really more geared to having it. What this would also do in phase two would be to incorporate and really tie all the departments together, such as adding building permit, so that we have a database of all our properties within the city. You can upload the GIS information, it's all compatible with GIS. Save on paper, we'd be able to scan invoices directly to the vendor, therefore being able to do more searches to see if we missed invoices, and just a more fluid going through, processes from one department to another. So that is for your consideration. Obviously, we have not, I've reached out to some of the better quality software companies. No decision obviously has been made, but just to give me a more general information on total cost.
Danielle, got a question?
Yes.
Alderman?
Okay, our previous comptroller, who was a certified CPA, and had worked for many years in government services, had told us back then, now this is a couple years, that there was a way to update our current software, that we just weren't staying updated with the software as it was moving and changing over time. Could you please bring to council the cost comparison of what it looks like to update what we currently have
That was,
versus,
we are current with the current version of our software.
that's not what I heard, so.
I don't doubt that. I will verify, but I talked to our software because we have been having some departmental training classes to see if we can improve some of our processes, and I was told that it was current.
That's IT, yeah.
Unless Larry knows something else.
He's IT.
No, I'm gonna confirm that it is current. We did an update, it was probably 6 to 8 months ago, to bring it up to its current ability. It's at its,
See,
it's at
that
its
should be the
newest.
question right there. I don't even.
Okay, and how much of that then is human error and not knowing how to utilize the updates?
It's,
Yeah, I want
Yeah,
to-
it's not, it's not so much human error as being able to capture everything and have a nice report that would be a great tool for our budgeting, for just having, here's what we have in the city. We have a lot of spreadsheets, okay? And spreadsheet one gets.
But I thought the software takes care of that. So then we're
However,
not
it doesn't
utilizing the
give us-
updates correctly.
It doesn't give us reports or things that we're looking for. We can't recapture everything in a nice format.
I'll need to come and sit with you and look at the software.
Absolutely,
I'd like to do that.
absolutely, no
Yeah,
problem.
that is true.
And we don't see nothing about it.
You don't say nothing about it.
Some of the initiatives that we've undertaken, we've updated this budget format, as you can see, if you, since you've reviewed the actual draft budget, you will see that we've included fund balances to give us a better idea of where we are before and where we end up. Obviously, projections are estimated, but at least we've updated that. We've streamlined our accounts payable process, which reduced our processing time. And that was a good collaboration, first collaboration effort with our accounts payable coordinator, Mary Woodson, who's done a fabulous job in implementing some of the changes. Departments were also issued, and I know it sounds silly, but we were issued stamps to approve bills. Up until this point, we were producing another piece of paper, making a request for a check requisition, repeating everything that was on the invoice itself, and then attaching it to the invoice. Now, all we're doing is stamping, having the same information on that stamp, and it's much less paper, much less time for all the administrative assistants or department heads that complete these. And it gives us the same information, so we've reduced time there. And in the comptroller office, we've started a procedure manuals that details current and updated procedures for various functions. So we have a few that have been updated, and we'll continue to work on these during the year. This is something that also our auditors have asked us to implement, so this is the beginning. Some of the emphasis for our coming fiscal year, it would be great to implement a new solution, financial software. The goals are to complete it on time. Collaboration and a CIP program, which is not just projects, buildings or water plants or water towers, but it will also include a vehicle and machinery and equipment portion of it. So this is something that is going to be a project. And again, we try to always look for more efficiencies within our department. Human resources. Some of HR functions, those are initiatives it amplified the wellness program. There's been supervisor training and organization-wide training on Paylocity. Paylocity is the service provider for our payroll. And we are trying to go green and give employees a portal. So we're, Liz is training them on how to use the portal to be able to change their deductions or their addresses so that we don't have a paper going from one department to another and then into the system. Everything has an approval, so it can't just automatically go through. There is a process that is followed. Next, I think one of the other things that we've been talking about, or Liz has been talking about, is to include a request for time off, vacation, sick time, whatever, again, going through a process, eliminating paper. Again, the really major increase is in contractual, and for the employment testing that was allocated, reallocated from the Administrative Services Department, an increase in advertising for recruitment. Information technology. I believe the only difference, increase, is in some contractual services and capital programs, and that is mainly to upgrade and replacement of old, outdated IT equipment. IT has added a lot of capabilities for police department operations. It has also added resources brought in for more efficiency and still controlling costs. Okay, and I've talked about the replacement of outdated equipment. Police. Mainly the big increases in contractual expense because we've added new software such as e-ticketing, the body cams, and it all needs technology. So while we're becoming more proficient in technology, some of our costs are also increasing. We were able, after, and you'll see in a later slide, after many discussions, to be able to get the police one police squad car. Fire. Oh, I know, the other thing I wanted to mention on police. Police is really understaffed, and they are working hard to fill vacant positions. This budget year, we have included funding for 8 vacancies and all the fringe benefits associated with this, so it's in there. However, please note that police is really understaffed by 16. So the result will, if we are able to fill those positions, the result will be lowering OT costs and liabilities for vacation time, accrued will be also be taken and will be reduced. Fire. Fire is had a slight increase in the total budget. Capital program, we were able to include an auto load cot out of 2 that was requested by the department, and those are the beds for the ambulance, the patient carrying beds. They're auto load. Some of their initiatives they've launched a pilot intern program through the high school to attract diversification and more people interested in possible careers within the fire department. They have applied for various grants with a value of over $611,000. We won't know the results of that until at least later in 2018. And there's still a program for free smoke detectors through the American Red Cross. Another thing that is worth a mention, because it does impact our revenue, is that they have improved billing recovery by using best practices with our paramedic billing services. Just two more departments for general fund. Okay, Public Works. Ed Wilms has done a lot of salary allocation where it needs to be done between the funds that he supervises, and that being street division, water, sewer, and refuse, although refuse doesn't really have any employees, it's just a service. So therefore, there's corresponding fringe benefit decreases. And we reallocated expenses for building maintenance that was attributable to the Public Works to the Facilities Management Division that you will see in a little bit. There's no vehicle or equipment expense within capital outlay. And also, fuel allocations have been implemented for the various departments. So it's more true to experience within the departments.
Question.
Daniela, question, Alderman?
Yes.
And that's with that 100,000 year-to-date
Yes,
projected?
because we just started the allocations, and these are one of the accounts that we will be reclassifying prior to the budget, the audit.
Okay.
Okay? We just formed, this was just begun a few months ago, that we finally had a handle on what the allocation should be. So now we're gonna make the adjustments for the fiscal year ending April 30th. So that's why that projection is 100,000 now, because that's truly what was spent to date. But the funds, when the invoice came in, when the invoices came in, we had not formulated the allocations on each invoice. We have done it now, but all those old invoices that weren't allocated will need to be reclassed to the various departments.
So the actual 2017 of 49,792, you're saying that because you're reclassifying, the number will increase?
I don't know how it was done in fiscal year 17, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I know how we're doing it now.
Okay,
And based on what we purchased, and don't forget, the fueling system is fairly new. It was
Okay.
installed this year. And so we had to, number one, the first order was, they were full tanks. Okay, so that's why you're gonna see an increase, a slight increase where we didn't have the tanks last year.
okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Economic development. As I noted before, building division, facilities management, and planning division, with all expenses being allocated to the department that merits that expense. Well, within each division, we'll have better financial control of expenses, and it establishes more transparency of reimbursable expenses, and we will talk about the question in a minute. I did not think it was a good idea to show percentage change in these three divisions, because it basically has the two divisions that haven't been created yet will all show 100% increase, while the other one will show a decrease. So take note of that. So if you go to pages, this is on page 36 through 38 of the budget. There was an elimination of a planned neighborhood services manager, a full-time position that I believe was requested last year. We were unable to fill that. And we are anticipating almost 100% collection of contractual services through invoicing on our cost recovery agreements. One of the, some of the initiatives for this department is that they undertook analysis as it relates to determining the cost benefit of either outsourcing or in-house plan review and inspection. And that's some of the things that Mr. Barrera is looking to. And the big thing is that this department has made substantial progress regarding Sheridan Crossing. Big undertaking. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
On page 36, the 4540, 4541. Now, the fast track, I thought that was just a program that was not going to last long. So that will be into this budget also?
Maybe Victor can answer
Okay.
that question.
The fast track demolition.
I've put some money in the budget to continue demoing properties. As I mentioned in the before, that we certainly can't demo at the pace that we demoed a couple of months ago, but we can continue demoing a couple of properties every year.
But you have two categories. 4540 is demolition. 4541 is fast track demolition.
Fast track demolition that I put in there is monies that I have to spend, or the city has to spend out first, and then we'll get reimbursed from the county CDBG money. So right now we are have been recommended to get approximately $30,000 from the county CDBG monies, but the city has to spend that money first and then
And
submit
then
for
it's
reimbursement.
reimbursed.
Exactly.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Allen?
But they are on staff the whole year though, right? For other, make understanding, so they
We're gonna demo properties with the existing staff. When there's an opportunity to demo a property, we will use existing staff to demo those properties, and we will use what I will call someone else's money to demo those properties. So be it county money, state money, we will go about demoing the properties that way as opposed to city money.
So we won't see a bill run on that right now from that company, from Fast Track. We won't see that on,
That is correct. You will not see one, no.
okay? Because we got rid of that other young lady, I can't remember her name right now. But,
Yes, these demolitions, to be clear, these demolitions will be managed by current staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize, I somehow did not print out the building division, so I'll have to just talk about it. And if you, and this way, if you go to page 36 of the budget document itself, things to note that there, we're anticipating hopefully a reduction in professional services. That would be line 4400. And as you can see on the wages and salaries, the wages have been, are all allocated according to function and responsibilities of the various staff members involved in that. If you, all right, look at 4399. That is our reimbursable building divisions and engineering services. Most of that is reflected. Now, it's a combination of various line items in other departments or divisions, but that is reflected on, if you go to starting on page 4 at the bottom, in the revenue side. So if you go to page 4 and 5, you will see some various line items called reimbursable legal services, reimbursable building division, reimbursable planning division, reimbursable engineering. Okay? So those are all the revenue side of the expenditure in the, mostly in the economic development. And those will also be carried through on the, not facilities management, but in the planning division, which we will look at right after this. As far as facility management, the only thing that was included in there for capital improvement, please. Is a rebudget of the HVAC system in the west wing. And at the last meeting, council approved the bidding process for that. That has been rebudgeted from this fiscal year. However, we have a more realistic cost, about 150 compared to 85 that we had budgeted for this fiscal year. And the controller's office, Reno, this is not the office I'm in, it's a department. And I think it was part of a plan that was talked about, I believe, last year. And that was to maybe make the outer offices and all the functions like accounts payable and payroll and cashiering and whatever else we have to make it a more useful and better designed office, and hoping that will also alleviate some of the morale. Maybe have a little bit more of privacy within certain areas, and we're estimating about 10,000. It may not even be that much, but that is a placeholder just in case. And an additional line item, we created a contingency line item in the facilities management. And that is really for, it's hard to know what amount you're gonna need for contingency. So we put a placeholder of 25 for any unexpected emergency item that might occur within the building, our buildings. Planning division.
Just hold up.
Question.
You mentioned something about morale. Is the morale down in the comptroller's
I
office?
think there was talk that because the office was, it was never like, it was just kind of put together. There was talk that with, this is what I've been told, it's hearsay because I got it fourth hand, but having more privacy within in people's work areas, cleaning up and maybe having better storage space for all the paper that we accumulate in department.
Or have you ever tried to have meetings and sit down and talk with some of the people and ask them what
Well,
some of the issues?
we're
Before you
talking.
before you spend the money, it might be some other things we should be.
And we
But
will.
I hear some things that, you said mention morale, I see a lot of people when you come, you don't even speak a lot of time. And I tell Deb all the time about that situation. Some of the department head don't even speak to the people. That's the morale right there, it costs nothing to speak. So I'm just asking a question, I hear some things going on, and you said you don't know what, but then you thinking about spending some money about the morale. So Deb, go ahead.
Okay, so, it was over a year ago, Mayor Rockingham and I met with every single person in the comptroller's office and asked about their jobs and how they were doing and, where they see the department going and things like that. And one of the things that was mentioned to us was that they would like a redesign of their office space. Some people would like to have cubicles to have some privacy. So that's where this is coming from.
Where it comes from. And
Wendy's here.
well, she ain't gonna sit there and
She's not gonna what?
Tell me how you feel.
No, all right, I'm not gonna put, all right, Wendy, I'm not putting you on the spot for anything, but would you like a redesign of your office?
Would you like to see the morale get better in the upper management?
See,
Okay,
hey,
I'm
wait,
gonna put
well, wait a
this-
minute.
See, I'm just telling you what,
trick
I'm telling you what
Upper
I hear.
management though, too,
I'm telling you
though.
what I hear.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And it started with you. I'm just
Right.
saying. So I'm hearing these things. So I'm gonna speak from what I hear.
Okay.
So you walked in a lot of time. You say she was talking about morale. So I'm trying to get the morale up with the people. And that don't cost anything.
Well, can I speak on that
Yeah,
too,
go ahead, man.
Alderman?
All right.
I mean, you're right. We did meet with all the employees there. You're right, but that does help morale when you can come in and I'm just gonna, like you say, keep it real.
Keep it real.
Keep it real. When you can see other departments having their departments redone.
Okay?
You know, whether it's economic development, whether it's in
Street department.
street departments, you see other things that, and the comptroller's office, who has not had any type of upgrade in many years. And as we talked to a lot of the employees, that was one of the things they said, is that, you know, we see these things going on in other, departments. That brings our morale down because we don't have that opportunity. First thing we told that department is, before we do any type of changes, we gotta keep it real. You had a lot of boxes, you had a lot of storage in that department, you've gotta get that cleaned up first. And they did it. They did what we asked them to do. And they had tons of boxes that Public Work finally got out, put it in storage where it belongs. Now we're trying to do our part and saying, okay, you've done your part, we wanna hold our part and try to redo your department to give you better cubicles, and hopefully, again, that helps in morale also, showing that we're doing our part as a city, as we heard from that department on the issues that they felt that was some of the things that were going wrong. So I'm just saying what I heard from the department.
But I'm telling you what I heard too. So they ain't gotta look at him, they ain't gotta speak to him now, they ain't gotta look at him. So that might be good. I'm just saying.
Maybe it
But
might
that
help
ain't-
morale to say they start speaking.
No, no. Wendy said it hasn't been redesigned since 2000, but I think that it's not that the department head doesn't want to look at anybody. It's that some people want to do work and some people are talking and they would just like a little privacy and some cubes, just partial cubes and.
I have no problem with that, but I
Okay.
hear this the next time, I'm gonna bring it back to city council again, cause the morale, I don't wanna hear about the morale, cause they said that's what they need, okay?
Well, they asked for a redesign, and we promised them a redesign, and they'll be part of the process.
Alderman January.
I just wanted to add to this, yes, morale is much needed to improve. But I also think we need to look at the aesthetics of the public view. And I know when I've walked past that window, I'm appalled. I sit there and think, oh my gosh, what is the public looking at when I walk by it and see the stuff I see? So I just think it would be beneficial to do a redesign of that particular office, not only for the morale and for the staff to have more efficiencies and be more effective in their roles, but also for the public and how it looks when our public approaches that window. It's the first thing they see when they come in here. So I think that's important too, is to make it very pleasing to the public as they walk in. So I think this would be a benefit all the way around, not just for staff, but for everybody.
Go ahead, Alderman.
Also, the morale for that department, and before I say this, I am not micromanaging the department. I want to be clear on that. I'm not micromanaging the department. But in order to keep morale in that department, you got to keep good people in that department. That's where it starts at, because one of the problems is that department is a keep turning over. To be honest with everybody, it keeps turning over. It does not have a stability in that department for the head right now. Because we keep, it's,
Well, as far as the department head, you're right.
I'm just gonna be real.
But the employees that are there, that's a stability.
Well, the employees, look, I didn't finish though.
Okay.
Because the employees have,
I'm going-
they have said they are not happy. They have said it. We have came up to several people about those employees. And I mean, if you want to switch the department or switch, that's not going to keep the morale. The morale that's going to be kept is if you guys come in there and speak or work with each other. That's what's going to keep that department going. No matter how you switch a seat or a chair or a desk, that's not what's going to keep those ladies in that department happy. What's going to keep them happy is working together. So hopefully they could just work together instead of just trying to divide them up by a wall. You know, that's all.
Bill of Bridge.
That's it.
Proceed, Daniela. Proceed.
Planning Division, most of those contractual service will also have positive reimbursable revenue implications. Again, other than that, that's all there really is in this particular department. All right. Last slide for general fund. After all is said and done on this proposed budget, if you look at the bottom, and this is on your page two, the famous page 2, which has everything in a nutshell, for anyone who wants to just look at big picture, I've used unassigned fund balance and matched it to our 2017 audit. Where we end up, and the last line will give you the percent of unassigned fund balance as of the last day in April of 30 of 2017. So then we kind of take, you know, what the budget, what the projections are, and what our request for budget. And yes, we have, we've gone below the average, which is probably running about 42% or so. We're still well above GFOA guidelines at 36.08. If we subtract the 444,000, which is capital outlay, we actually see that the operating difference is upside down 963,000 and change. Don't forget, I've talked about static revenues, and I've talked about state local taxes being cut by about 400. So it makes a big difference. So that's where we would end up. Still a good fund balance by all standards. All right. We're going to talk about special revenue, but more in generalities, because these are funds that are usually funded by taxes, interest income, and unspent and other, like drug funds that are through police operations revenues. That is I know you can't see it on there, but again, if you look at your pages, the section marked special revenue, you will see all of them in bigger and larger print, okay? These are some of the expenditures that are being requested. 2.4 from the motor fuel tax fund for street repair. Totally funded by motor fuel taxes. The 2.4 is actually, it incorporates streets from the 2017 budget that haven't been done, plus a 2018 plan. CDBG, the capital, the development, block grant, total, it's a total in and out funded by, other local agencies. We have a capital improvement fund that has had, for unspent cash from a number of years ago. And the fire department is requesting and has requested for the last several years, a working alarm system. So, they'll probably run a little bit over 49, but right now we've budgeted whatever we spent, and the rest will probably be absorbed within the fire department, budget, or facility management, I should say. E911, the budget presented has been requested through the E911 board. The Skokie Highway TIF, there are grants available that might fund these improvements. Otherwise, the city will need to reduce the expense and find funding within the other funds. This is a whole, kind of a placeholder. Grant Place operating, basically those are all the property taxes at the Grant Place Shopping Center as well as all the maintenance. And this is normally recaptured through our leases. Internal service funds, basically these should be self-supporting. So for the most part, revenues equals expenditure, and obviously in the dental and vision fund, we keep a balance for claims. The retiree premium is basically in and out. Okay. Debt service, there's not much you can do to this, as it's already been set by ordinance through the issuance of debt. So this is just recapturing the dollars within each of the debt service funds. This does not take into consideration the refunding, because the refunding has not gone through. So I could not capture it within this. This is what is established at this point. But on another note, I did get good news. We got our new EAV, and it's increased again.
Mm-hmm. Very
So
good.
that's all a good thing. It increased this year by 2.52%. This will be our last fund. This is our water department fund, our enterprise. Let me just here. Again, and I've mentioned this before because Ed is also in charge as Public Works Director, also takes care of the enterprise funds. Salary allocations have been done, and for some of the, not all the positions obviously, but just some of the positions that fall within several areas of responsibilities and function. We do see, we eliminated the engineering department and put it as a line item for the sewer and for the water, so that we keep track of costs associated with projects within those divisions. Pie chart, and just kind of gives you an idea where everything lies. Enterprise fund, this is kind of a historical revenues. So our water and sewer revenue streams, and you can see that we had a really good year, 16-17. But pretty much they're pretty static. not some up and down, but of course, this is also dependent on the weather, dry spells or not, so a little bit of everything. Waterworks Division, this is a kind of a summary of what is in the capital program that is being requested with 4.4 million for various items, both buildings and equipment, and within the sewer division of 177 for a total of 4.6. All right. Any questions on the water sewer at this point? And I'll just go to closing comments. Here's a recap of what was originally in our budget at the very first go-around, and the end result. As you can see, more cuts than what has been, we were able to find funding for through other reductions in some of the line items in the general fund. Kind of a visual of where our capital has gone, and how it was allocated from years 13, 14 through the upcoming fiscal budget. Pros and cons. It meets GFOA recommended standards for fund balance. It includes an investment for financial software. It created divisions within departments to allocate and control expenses. It is more transparent. The cons. It does not address all our capital needs. There's still a lot of deferred maintenance that still exists. If the ERP solution is not funded, the organization will not be able to institute several efficiencies, and the rising costs of labor. These are our challenges for upcoming, and that is the need to create a 5-year CIP, not only for buildings and infrastructure, but also for equipment, machinery, and vehicles. And to hire to fill vacancies in police, which will reduce overtime and reduce any vacation liabilities. And the need to create a systematic and fair approach to reduce liabilities organization-wide. That's it.
Questions?
Any questions?
Alderman?
Where is it in the budget for the insurance fund that we're to have? Is that in there?
Is it the dental and vision?
No, ma'am.
Risk
The-
management?
No, the insurance from, slipped my mind.
Liability, workman's comp, that kind of insurance?
No, it was from the,
Health insurance?
yes. No, Orange Group, thank you.
Orange Group, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's, the actual expense for, is all part of the fringe benefits, the expenses recorded there.
On what page is that?
That will be on every page, under fringe benefits where, there are departments that have employees. So the way the insurance works, there's a component of, that is, an employee portion that they, pay as part of their salary, part of their payroll.
Yeah,
I don't think that's what.
that's not what I'm speaking on. The Orange Group has stated we had to have a certain amount in a fund, every year, and we were supposed to save a certain amount. The treasurer has it on his treasurer's report every month. and we're supposed to designate a certain amount into that fund every year. And I've asked that question every time we come to the budget, and no one really addresses it. They had designated that we were supposed to save a certain amount every year. So I guess it's to the treasurer. Questions to the treasurer.
We'll have to go back and discuss it, but it's the amount, once we get recommended that we get up to, I think, $10 million or so amount, we have to have a reserve.
Right.
And that, each year we have to allocate a certain amount to go into the reserve account.
Mhm.
I think that an analysis has to be done to see how much should go into that account, for this year. That's basically based on our current claims and future claims that come up.
Correct. So now, is it in this budget now?
No.
Okay, so our agreement with them was to have that in the budget.
Yes.
So it needs to be in the budget. Okay, thank you. That's my first question. Second question is with the community day. Where is that in the budget?
Community days?
Community days.
Yes. The budget it has remained in the administrative, services.
Okay.
As a line item, and let me go to that page. Page 13. It is on page 13 of the budget document. Under, account number 4745, which is second from last under, above contractual services. Are you, page 13?
Yes, I'm there.
I know, those are smaller.
Yeah. Okay, now, it says here that fiscal year 2017 actual numbers. And it says $117,168
Was the expense.
was the expense. Okay, now, my next question would be, they're supposed to give back to the water fund a certain amount. Has that been budgeted in here? There was a project that was done, and funds were borrowed from the water fund to do it, and the community day is supposed to reimburse that. Is that in the budget?
I don't know, what that is.
It was a
but
project for the
however-
electricity. Yes.
However, I know that our, Amy, Wittes, who does our community days, has all the information and the detail that we can provide.
I believe that was
Or,
last,
Deb,
I've spoken to Amy about it. I don't know if it went through Mary or not, but when Mary was here, the previous comptroller, Amy made enough money at the last community days that she would be able to pay back the entire loan for the electricity.
So has it
And
been
that's-
done?
And that's what she wanted to do. I will double check.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to get
That's what
those
her-
numbers.
That's what she planned to do. She just wanted to pay it back all at once. and get it
Yeah,
all-
if
and get it all.
if we can
But-
get those numbers, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Oh, never mind. Oops.
but my concern again, I was gonna have her pay back what was allocated per year on that, you know, because there was a certain amount we said we were gonna pay per year on repaying that. I was gonna, and I had talked to Amy about that. I wanted to make sure that we still had enough funds. She said we made enough to pay it all back, but I want to make sure that we still have enough going back into this year's Community Day, that we have that seed money to go out and still be able to present, you know, our Community Day. So, but we have enough money in there to pay what we were supposed to pay back to the city.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, never mind.
No, that's
Sorry,
okay.
Mayor. Okay.
I know, Amy brought it to me too. It's all right.
I just got one question, to the comptroller. What is the salary of the comptroller right now?
Right now, I'm not a salaried employee, I'm on contract.
Okay, so we pay, well, that's what to be the bill. How we doing this then? So I just wanna know what are we paying, cause it's just a big salary up there, I just wanna know. You gotta have,
The salary of the comptroller, I don't know it exactly off the top of my head. Maybe Liz can help me if she's here. I think it's an A26. And it is,
hey, get back with me then, if you don't mind.
it's about 125. And so that, with the fringe benefits, turns out to be more than what we pay the contractor, because we calculated that thoroughly when Bill Brim was here.
I remember we was way up that high with that one.
Yeah, but he still came out below when we were paying him as a contractor. He still came out below having a full-time comptroller with the salary and fringe benefits.
But are we paying French benefits now? I'm just asking.
Not to her? No.
Okay, just asking.
No, when she takes time off, we don't pay her.
Okay.
We don't.
Just asking.
But
Thank you.
she doesn't get health benefits or anything like that.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any more questions, folks?
Question.
Alderman?
You said that there's 16 vacancies in the police department.
Yes,
And you budgeted for 8.
yes.
Do you have the numbers on how that's gonna reduce overtime?
No, at this point, no.
Okay, but you budgeted for 8,
Yes.
but you don't know how much that
I
8
have
will
not done a
reduce?
calculation yet, no.
Okay, and then also, well, in the perfect world, you said 16 would be good to have. You wouldn't have those numbers either, so you don't have either both numbers for 16 or 8.
Well,
Because I'm trying to see the reduction of overtime.
yes.
Yeah,
Even if you hire 8,
mm-hmm,
you will still have
Still gonna have overtime.
8 openings.
mm-hmm.
So you're gonna still have some overtime.
Right, I understand that, but how much will it reduce the overtime that's
The current
existing now?
overtime, we
Correct,
have to do an analysis of
right,
that if
yeah,
we fund
so,
it.
but you haven't done that yet.
No, not yet.
Okay.
And as far as 16 is the actual count that's down, that's down now.
Mhm.
Whether, I don't know if it's by,
Right, I'm just going on by the numbers that you have.
what? By ordinance.
Right, and I'm just going by those numbers that you have.
If we bring in 16, that would bring it up to full complement, is that correct?
Right.
And I guess our thing is, I don't think we've really ever been up to full complement since I've been in office, and but we are down considerably, and we do need to bring that number up.
Do you have the amount on overtime now?
To date,
Yes, ma'am.
no. But it's gonna be very close to my projection, if not,
About 800. Said
Mm.
9.
about $1 million, $1 million
I was off.
plus.
Okay,
And I think that's probably around what it's been running, very close to that.
averaging that every
Yeah, so we've been
year.
averaging because we've been down those.
Mhm. Okay.
Just keep in mind that when you're reducing your OT, you're.
Right, you're gonna also
increasing
increase other areas.
The fringe benefits.
Correct, yes, I
exactly.
understand that.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So it might be a smaller dollar amount that you think, but it will be a reduction.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Any more questions, folks?
Could I just say on that also, though, I mean, you're right, it's gonna increase our friends' benefits, but as far as stress on the men themselves, having to work, 2 shifts at a time, I mean, it'll bring that down. And I think to me, it helps the quality in regards to our police officers and how they handle calls.
That's
and Maria.
I'm gonna throw that one in.
Back into.
So,
Is that it? Daniela,
Go one more thing. Sorry.
go ahead.
This thing.
What about sidewalks? That's in the budget also, is that correct?
It ain't in there today, right?
Sidewalks?
anybody?
So Alderman, if you're talking about
Come
new
up.
sidewalks.
Could you come up? Thank you.
You had mentioned that the council would have to agree for the filling in.
So, correct, for new
Right,
sidewalks,
right,
gaps
correct.
and infills, that
Correct.
matter has to come to the council for
Right.
discussion. There's generally some funding available for infrastructure.
Mhm.
How it's allocated, we've not gotten to that level yet because that discussion hasn't occurred on the council.
So it doesn't necessarily need to be in the
You won't
budget?
see that line item in there.
Perfect, that's all I need to know. Thank you, sir.
Anything else? Daniela, well done. Thank you. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee meeting.
So,
Second.
It's been moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, meeting adjourned.
I don't know. I don't know if you wanna, Mayor, did you wanna go to council for the, Black History? for
Yeah, we
Black
could.
College Tour?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, I know they have been very patient waiting.
Yeah.
Would it be okay to go to Committee of the Whole?
Right.
Okay. Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up the Committee of the Whole. Could I have a roll call?
Alderman Fisher.
Present.
Alderman Mayfield.
Present.
Alderman Evans.
Here.
Alderman Allen.
Here.
Alderman Markham.
Present.
Alderman Runnels.
Here.
Alderman January.
Present.
Okay, I have a one-item agenda. It's on the discussion regarding the Waukegan Township's Black College Tour, or HBCU. Ms. Jones did come to me and asked, they had a vacant spot, or a spot available for another student to attend. And she did have a North Chicago student that had requested to be in attendance, but naturally, there is funding required. And they are coming to ask if there's a possibility that this person would be able to be funded through the city of North Chicago. I know that I have funded through my account a granted, a person, but because there is a spot, and his name is Dennis Shelley, Dennis Shelley. Gentleman here, he is in football, he is in wrestling, he is in track. He has a good GPA. I won't go into, but he has a good GPA. I don't, they, as they said, they don't want me to express what it is, but unless he wants to tell you what his GPA is. But, which I look at, and I would be proud of. But they do want to ask if this council would fund that program. And Tammy, let me ask, are you asking for the full funding?
Come up.
Come on up,
I like to know what
Mr. Shelley.
Good evening.
Mayor, actually, I think it would just be the student portion.
Okay.
So full funding per student is about $1,900.
Ooh,
No,
no.
we're not asking for the full
Correct.
funding. Student portion is, for Dennis, would be $750. That is what we're asking for, and the rest, of course, is absorbed by the township.
Okay. And Dennis, what year are you? Sophomore, okay. and I don't want to put you on the spot, but, you know, in life, you're going to have to sometimes state your case.
Right.
And sometimes, you know, in order to state your case, you know, it's always good to, what do they say? It's a sad dog that won't wag his own tail.
Yeah. A closed lip won't
So
get
I mean,
fed.
it sounds like you have been doing a lot of positive things at the high school. Just tell this council, you know, what you have done and what do you see that you would like to do in life if you had this opportunity to go on a college tour?
Okay, so far what I have done is I have made it, you know, we have came close to the playoffs in football, made it to sectionals for wrestling, and I'm currently doing track and just came from indoor state Saturday. I hope to open my horizon by visiting these colleges, by planning out my future and having success in it.
Very good. All
Very
right.
good.
All right. So, good. Are there any, have you thought of anything that you would like to do if you were able to go to attend college? So there is, like I say, Ms. Jones did come to us and said there's an opening. This is a North Chicago student, and who is doing well in school. So, I don't know, Counsel, did you have any questions for him also?
I just had one real quick.
Sure,
one.
Alderman January?
Have you been able to do any community activities? I know between school and all the different sports that you take part in, have you been able to do anything community-wise, service-wise?
Yes, I was a volunteer at the last community day, and I was there since then.
And you'll be this August, right?
We also have opportunities for the students when we return from the tour, March 30th. The following week, we have our township annual meeting, and at that time, we have the students from the tour come and speak and give their account of how the tour impacted them. A lot of times on the tour, our students are offered on-the-spot placement, scholarships, fees waived. So we prepare them, not just for the tour, but we actually prepare them for school. Dennis is a sophomore, so he has some time to build up his student resume. But we do encourage them to create a student resume, to present themselves. You want to go to college? Give them a reason to bring you in. You know, make them want you. So Dennis is here with his grandmother. He lives with his grandmother. His grandma.
Mm-hmm.
So Dennis needs to look for scholarship opportunities. So we'll also help all the students with that. We have 38 students. Dennis would be 39 on our roster for this year. This is the largest college tour that we've had, and this is our 5th year. So there's a lot more volunteer work that he can do. Because once he's in, we actually keep in contact with the students throughout the year. So from now until more than likely he graduates, we'll be looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
We ain't gonna put him on the spot no more, Mayor. We gonna take
No,
care.
and I would hope that possibly as you move forward, you know, we do have our student program, and it'd be a good idea if that would be something that you can move towards also. So, all right. So thank you, Ms. Harris. Thank you for being here. It is on council. It is on the council agenda. So
No problem.
if there's
Question.
something that we could move,
Make Evans get that much.
So the funds will come from your fund, or are we able to contribute from our
It would come-
miscellaneous fund?
it would come out of general corporate fund.
So it wouldn't come from any particular fund?
I don't believe so, no. Come out of general, I put money in from my fund for another student
Already.
in that has had an opportunity to go also. So you'll see that on the bill run. that I did, but this one came to me, and I said that, you know, I would present it to council, and it would just come out of general corporate. As far
So
as the
if, what I'm saying is, is an alderman able to contribute
Oh,
to
yes.
our fund?
Well,
The fund individual?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay.
You can contribute out your pocket if you want to, right?
We can do that too.
Contribute out your pocket.
So,
We can do that too.
Right, there you go.
but if it's passed, it would come out of our general corporate, okay? All right, if there's no other, nothing else under committee of the whole, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman Allen, second by Alderman Reynolds, that the committee of the whole stand adjourned. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
I would like to,
We will let you know how it comes out. I know we still got quite a bit to go today, so this evening. All right? All right.
I would like to open up the Public Works Committee meeting, roll call.
Alderman Fisher.
Present.
Alderman Mayfield.
Present.
Alderman Evans.
Here.
Alderman Allen.
Here.
Alderman Markham.
Present?
Alderman Reynolds.
Here.
Alderman January.
Right, we have 6 items on the agenda. The first item is the presentation discussion of the life cycle fleet management and replacement policy graph. Ed Williams.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the council and committee. Electronically, you all received this document in your packets. It's a draft version of what we're calling, what I'm calling and my staff are calling life cycle management of the fleet. So much like what Danielle had already spoken of, we need to think a little bit differently. We need to think of fleet as an asset for the city. We talked last year when you all were kind enough to permit the police department to buy vehicles. If you remember that presentation, we separated the need from the emotion. So all of us as department managers, we all have fleets, vehicles under our purview. And so I, as having fleet under my my departmental umbrella, and Mr. Vadi Durayan as our new fleet manager, he's here with us this evening. We don't like to micromanage any individual department's fleet, but what Vadi and his staff do are part of the process for fleet management. So, also on your dais this evening, I prepared a document that speaks to lifetime fleet management, lifetime vehicle replacement, vehicle recycling, if you will. So, for instance, the police department needs vehicles every year simply by the nature of their work. Police officers are hard on equipment. They have a lot of equipment. They have the biggest number of heavy-use vehicles in the fleet in general. And so what we want to try to do is to get police patrol cars, and I'm saying patrol cars only. Steve and I have talked about this at quite some time. If we buy a few patrol cars each year, we don't take the big hits that we do when we, kind of influence, maybe make what are come back to us to be less than ideal decisions when it comes to certain aspects of fleet management. So in order to, again, take the emotion and the management of the police vehicles out of the equation, let's just talk about financial balancing of our budgets. So buying a few vehicles a year makes sense. We get some return on the investment, we get some value at auction, but more importantly, as the police patrol vehicle fleet stabilizes, the build-out costs go from $20,000 to $2,500 because they simply take the equipment out of one car and move it to the next. So our big picture costs are able to be very well controlled. So this is only a sample. Obviously, nothing has come to council for any authorization, for any procedures, for anything to proceed ahead. We have spoken at a little bit. Daniela has offered that there is some money in the current budget we would like to get because the chief needs a couple of cars for 18. And there's nothing in his budget for fiscal year 19, but there is some money that Danielle has found for 18 that we'll talk to you about next meeting. But I wanted to give this to you simply so you can get used to it. What it also did is it gave me and all of us, Vadi and his guys included, an opportunity to really look and see what we're buying each year. So the pink highlighted cells are the actual procurements. So we're looking at where can we afford money. Every year in my water and sewer fund, I have money in there for equipment, and some pretty big dollars over the past years. As I mentioned last meeting when you all allowed me to buy a 2002 truck, I don't need brand new big trucks. I don't need a $160,000 truck. If I can continue to find slightly used quality equipment on the secondary market for our snow plows and for some of our equipment, I'm going to go there because I'm going to use those bigger dollars to fund other needs that we definitely have, which are police vehicles, which are trucks out of ECD. I've got 5 trucks in my fleet in Public Works that have over 100,000 miles on them. They have no floorboards, they have no seats. We have to buy vehicles for those 5, or part of those 5, now. So this addresses that. It addresses taking some very good trucks that are in economic development and cycling them out of economic development and over to streets. They've got 3 trucks over there, and Victor and I have spoken on it. Pickup trucks for an inspector, they don't necessarily need that type of vehicle. They can get by with something much more fuel economy, economic, the same as you and I would. So we're actually demoing a vehicle for them this week. So anyway, this is the first blush at this. I encourage you to spend some time looking at this document. Really spend some time looking at this because there's quite a few tables in there with expected life by department. When should we cycle these things out? So we want to be proactive. We want to be methodical about what we're doing. We want to be able to predict costs. The only way you can budget is to even off your expenses. Plan your expenses over multi-years, and this thing goes out to 2030. So it's out there a ways. So, questions?
Are there any questions?
Can you just kind of break down, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it, but I don't quite understand
This ain't making
how
no
it,
sense.
how it reads, Ed.
Okay.
I mean, I see the Public Works, and you've got a current 400, which is a 2005, I guess, Explorer. Is that 400 is the number of the vehicle, or what's the 400?
So that's the unit number, Mayor.
Okay.
Yes. That's
So
our
the-
inventory number. The year is the 2005, and EXP is Expedition.
Okay. And then the other one below it is a Toyota, 2008 Toyota.
Right.
And then when it says current in the yellow, what is that telling me?
So those ones in yellow are the ones that we just have to get rid of. We have to focus on getting rid of those trucks out of Public Works because some of them have already been put out to pasture. We don't even use them.
Okay.
And they're just getting unsafe to drive.
Okay. So yellow is get rid of.
Yep.
And the green is,
So the green under ECD, we're proposing to cycle a couple of pickup trucks out of their fleet and buy out of some funding to be determined, we haven't identified funds, 2 new small Escapes for them for their inspectors. They happen to be demoing an Escape this week. Each inspector is taking it out and trying it to see if it works for them.
okay.
And then we can use those 2013s over in streets to cycle out some of those old pickup trucks.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Same with the police Dodge pickup truck, that 4-wheel drive. We'll get that out of police and move that over someplace in Public Works. We don't know exactly where it's going to fit yet, but Chief has said that he really doesn't have a need for it in police anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can make use of it, we'll make use of it.
Okay.
So what I tried to do with the colors here, for instance, in the first table where you have kind of the fuchsia color, for the skin tone color. New under Public Works Administration, we would buy 2 new police pursuit Explorers, use them for a year in Public Works Administration, and then next budget year, move those 2, as well as another police Explorer that would be purchased out of the water funds, over to police. Police patrol vehicles can be a second use vehicle because we don't put many miles on them as Public Works Administration. And then for Daniela's, for the accounting, she can come up with a creative way to amortize it, put it on a 3-year depreciation and take 2 years of depreciation, for instance, in the first year. So then a general fund only takes a hit for 1/3 of the police cost. So basically, every year, the police are able to get 3 new vehicles for the price of 1. That's a book transaction. Still have to have the money to pay for it.
That's right.
You still have to pay it back, and there's some fund transfers that have to happen.
What cup is
Again.
the ball under?
That's true.
Yeah.
Alderman Allen?
Ed, I'm just curious. The neighbors right next to us, they go into smaller cars, they go into little cruisers. Why are we going to get escapes? Why are we going?
So the
I'm just
escape,
asking.
good question, Alderman, very good question. So right now, the code enforcement inspectors are in a pickup truck.
Right.
V8 engine pickup truck. The
Right.
Escape is a 4-cylinder. It's a small SUV, and it's an SUV that's got enough room inside of it for them physically to get into, along with their stuff. And it's a durable vehicle. It'll last for 10 years. But it is a 4-cylinder, and that's a good point.
Our neighbors next to us, they doing it, why we can't do it? Why we going out big cars? Are we trying to accommodate somebody cause?
So, no, this is not a big car, Alderman. I need you to look at an Escape because it's really a small car. It's a compact. I happen to own one myself, which is why I'm pretty high on it, because it is a very good car. It's big enough for me to get in, it's big enough for inspectors to get in, plus the equipment they have to carry with them. It has a opening hatch. And it's affordable. It's 1/3 the cost of a pickup truck.
Probably get 3 of them if you get them little old
Yeah,
cruisers.
they're right around 19,000. Very affordable for a brand new vehicle. Great question.
If no one else has a question, I have a question for Daniela about this.
No, I don't want to ask a question about
You mentioned during the budget presentation that one of the goals for this year, or one of the challenges for this fiscal year, is to prepare a capital improvement plan.
Yes.
Should this be part of the capital improvement plan more holistically?
Absolutely. And we have to create a plan for how to fund these. We don't have a plan on how to fund these, so to do it this fiscal year, virtually impossible.
And then, this will be part of an entire plan that lays out all the capital things so we can
Yes.
weigh the priorities.
Absolutely.
All right.
Right, so we've been discussing capital, the definite need to have a capital plan, and this is headed in that direction.
But in the meantime,
In the meantime, we have continuing needs that need to be met. and
Okay.
These are the ones that are the immediate need.
when you say the police needed, how many, within the past 2 years, how many vehicles did the police receive?
So the police got 2014 squads, they got some 2015 squads, 6 each, I think. They had 1 totaled last year. The other ones have some high mileage, and Alderman, you've actually got the current mileage on the report that I gave you for all of those vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So, you get to the point of where with vehicle maintenance, if the maintenance numbers, how many hours it takes to maintain the vehicles because there's so many miles put on them, if those numbers are high, then it makes sense to reduce that number somehow. So how do you reduce that number? Well, you spread that load over more vehicles. So if he's going to get additional officers on the street, they're going to need additional vehicles. So that means the number of miles per week are going to increase. There's enough miles being put on those new Explorers today that keeps Body's maintenance staff busy just doing oil changes. That's how many miles they drive.
What I'm trying to figure out is, if we got 16 cars out there, and we have officers, so we just received brand new cars within the last couple of years, which I know these cars are going 3 shifts per day and stuff, but you are not using each car every day, right?
With that, I leave it to the police chief,
Well,
because
no,
that's
because
part of
okay.
micromanaging
The reason
that
I'm asking you, no, I'm not micromanaging. I'm not micromanaging nobody. Okay, I'm just asking the question because that's a famous quote that's going around here. It's always micromanaging when you're asking a question. So I'm not micromanaging nobody's department. The only thing I'm asking is, if you short 16 police officers, and you got 24 cars, how in the world is we tearing up these cars, or how can't the maintenance be done on these vehicles that we always have to borrow money from one department to pay for cars in another department? Because the reason I ask is because by the time that Larry puts in the radios and all the equipment that goes into these vehicles, now it's time to turn around and spend more money on these vehicles again. So we're not even really using them but a year and a half by the time the turnaround comes. So that's my question.
Sure, and it's a great question. So again, Chief has told me that he needs 12 patrol cars on a daily basis.
Okay.
12 patrol cars to manage his officers. He needs a certain number of cars for command, he needs a certain number of cars for investigations, and he needs a certain number of cars for K-9. On page 29, I happen to detail all those cars.
Okay.
And the desired rotation. So if you see, we actually have patrol cars. If we can get ourselves committed, and I stress committed, buying cars every year, 3 cars every year, he meets that 4-year or 5-year rotation. We're always going to have a car in a year that's going to get totaled, that's going to get blown up, what have you. That's called using the equipment. That's called doing their job. Now, if it's careless, or if it's reckless, or if it's, bad behavior by the police officers and any one of our staff, we have a process through our safety committee to address that. So we do take it cradle to grave. And for an accident review process, Liz has a very robust program. I have a very robust program in Public Works. I know Dell does in her shop as well. So we take high regard with the proper use and care of these very expensive assets, because they are very expensive. Getting back to outfitting the police car, if we can get them on the Explorer, and Ford doesn't change that chassis drastically on us, we can move that equipment in-house using body staff from one vehicle to the other. We can save those expensive build-outs. More and more of the equipment is becoming modularized, which means it doesn't have to be hardwired. Body cams, body radios don't have the big, heavy gear in the vehicle anymore. And that changes all the time. I know what you're saying, and we appreciate it. It's just part of the cost, unfortunately, of doing business.
Any questions?
Again, I please encourage you, there's a lot of detail in here. Many, many hours were spent on this. So please take the time and read it and help me proofread it for you.
Item 2 is the presentation, discussion, consideration of professional services proposal received from Trotter and Associates. Proposed 2018 MFT street resurfacing program and authorization to advertise for bid for the project.
So thank you, Alderman. Last week at Council, at Public Works Committee, I gave you a spreadsheet that contained a number of streets and the potential costs the engineers opinion of probable cause for the repaving of those streets. So our next step in this process would be to solicit bids for that work.
Any questions? Okay. Item 3 will be the presentation, discussion, consideration of professional services proposal received from Trotter and Associates, proposed 2018 water main replacement program.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item is for the design work, for the document preparation of plan specification and proposed costs associated with the Sherman Ave and Dickey Ave water main replacement project. We have funding as a separate thing for the construction. This is for the design work to do the work.
To do the work. Are there any questions? No.
No.
Okay. Item 4, the presentation, discussion, consideration of professional services proposal received from Trotter and Associates, development of a master plan for the city's water system and water treatment plant estimate.
So thank you, Alderman. There are 3 components to this. There's the water treatment plant work, there's the water distribution system work, and then there's a rate study at the end. So what we need to do, this is a great night to be talking about this, if we're talking about building all this infrastructure, we need to know how we're going to pay for it. So we're looking at a variety of funding options, some bonds, but also water rates. What do the water rates have to be, and how are we going to pay for it? Can we afford to build what we're proposing to build? So this is probably a multi-year project for Trotter because there's a lot of work that goes into this, particularly when it comes to the rate study. They may throw a bunch of folks at it and get it done and bill it out in the next calendar year. Bob Benson is here from Trotter. He's actually the individual that prepared the document that's in your packet. And if there are specific questions about the elements of it, you can more than answer them because he's been working on this also a very long time.
All right. Any questions? No. Item 5, presentation, discussion, consideration of professional services proposal received from Intera Inc., geotechnical services required for the 2018 MFT resurfacing program.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Intera is a geotechnical services corporation out of the, where are they from? Bolingbrook. They provide geotech services. Geotech services are a required element when we use motor fuel tax dollars for our road maintenance program, for our repaving program. And this is a contract outside of the Trotter contract to pay for that service. It's actually, it's a really good price.
Okay.
Less than we had been paying.
No questions. Okay, and item 7, presentation, discussion, consideration, request to participate in the 2018 road salt bid and purchasing process with IDOT in Lake County, IDOT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we have before you is kind of a matter of housekeeping. We do this every year. It's your authorization for me to participate with the IDOT CMS salt procurement process, the bid process, if you will. Just for some background, always used to be that the state prices were the highest. Last year, the state actually got some really, really good bids. The state number was $44.75 per ton. We only put in for 600 tons because the year before it had been over $100 a ton or close to $100 a ton, and we were able to get a much better price from Morton. So salt, like every other commodity, is extremely volatile, and so you always kind of want to hedge your bets. So we continue to have Morton available to us at their this current year price was $62.50 a ton. If we can get in for some of that $44.75 per ton price from CMS, we'll go heavy in that contract. But we definitely want to make sure we have salt. Lake County DOT also has a very similar program. We've never participated in it that I'm aware of, but it might be worthwhile to dabble our foot in that program as well, simply to become a participant such that in the event something goes crazy and somebody can't deliver salt, we have another supplier that we can, lean towards. So that would be my request to participate in the CMS work for 2018-19, and then also to the Lake County for some nominal nominal quantity.
Okay.
Okay, sounds a good idea.
Yes, and it's all motor fuel tax. Thank you.
All righty. Well, thank you very much. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion. Oh. Right ahead, Mayor.
Ed, in this master water system plan, I noticed they are doing a study. I'd like to hold off on that. If council would mind, I'd like to hold off on 7-6.
Oh, just pull the whole item and table it?
Yep.
Oh,
Fine.
table,
Okay
okay.
with me.
Gotcha.
That's the water tank, right?
That's the master plan and the,
For the
yeah,
whole
for
water.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, 'cause that's somebody spending money.
That was that one, right.
This is not the engineering for the water tower. This is a holistic study of the whole system.
Right.
Correct.
That would have included a study about what water and sewer rates were required to support the operation and capital improvements to the system.
Right.
Right, right.
Okay.
But when we did that study with Woodman, they did a study just on the water rates itself.
Mm-hmm.
When Woodman did, they just did the water.
Yeah, and prior to that, we've had other companies come in and do water rate studies also,
And that was $10,000 back then, somewhere in that percentage.
somewhere in that area, yep.
Yeah, and saying now, to do this master plan, we don't have a price on that one, then, do we?
No, that's the one.
So
that-
each one of the individual components to that item
Yeah.
are broken out in the agreement that you have in your handout. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all that breakdown, okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Okay, thanks, Mayor.
Alrighty, at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the Public Works Committee meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Allen, second by Alderman Mayfield. Roll call.
Alderman Fisher. Alderman Mayfield.
Aye.
Alderman Evans.
Aye.
Alderman Allen.
Aye.
Alderman Markham.
Aye.
Alderman Runnels.
Aye.
Alderman January.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
I would like to open up the Economic Development Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. Roll call.
Alderman Fisher. Alderman Mayfield.
Present.
Alderman Evans.
Here.
Alderman Allen.
Here.
Alderman Markham.
Present.
Alderman Runnels.
Here.
Alderman January.
Just for review, discussion of Little Mines Learning Center Development Agreement. We'll have Victor come up and,
Good evening, Alderman Allen. This is a matter that we had brought to the committee a couple of months ago, and at the time, we had presented that the special use for the proposed Little Mines Learning Center had gone to the Planning and Zoning Commission and had obtained unanimous approval. We talked about the project's worth or impact for that matter. We talked about it being a $2.4 million project. We also talked about the number of jobs that this project was going to create. Since that time that we presented the project, we have been working with the developer and with our attorney to sort through a number of development agreement comments, issues. I believe that we've resolved most of them, but there remains this issue as it relates, or there remains an issue as it relates to public improvement. And the developer is here this evening. We have Randy Kehoe with North Star Commercial Partners that would like an opportunity to make a presentation to the committee and request relief from the city ordinance as it relates to public improvements and the completion of public improvements, specifically the public improvements for Sherman Avenue. This is something that the city, that staff does not have authorization to provide a developer on relief on, and so the developer has requested an opportunity again to the committee to make that request. The feedback provided this evening by the committee will help us in finalizing the development agreement and bringing it to the city council for formal approval on April 2nd. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Randy, and he will walk you through his presentation. Thank you. I'll hand him out.
Good evening.
good evening. How you doing, Randy?
Thanks.
Just about ready.
Okay.
Just get the summary of what our development looks like, and then what the, I'm going to ask the city council to help us out with. Here's our project, and you can see lot 1, that's where the Little Mines daycare business is going to be located, and then there's a big surplus piece of property, which is lot 2. And Sherman Avenue. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we're going to be building on lot 1, and currently Sherman Avenue exists down approximately to that center section of lot 2. And so we're just hoping to open up Sherman Avenue to the north so we can access 24th Street. And I guess back to this slide, it's a little bit narrow. The highlighted portion in yellow, we're actually not buying that from the credit union. So the street accounts for about 0.68 acres, and we'll be rededicating that to the city. There's the Little Mine site plan. So then I think the city's considering extending Sherman Avenue to Saratoga Street. And down at along Saratoga, I believe that there might be a Starbucks project plan. That's what I've heard anyway. So if the Starbucks developer is actually going to develop that property, then they would probably build Sherman Avenue up to our southern property line where all the trees are.
Yeah.
And then at some point, you know, the rest of Sherman has to be developed. So, but what we're asking, here's what we're buying the property for, just so you can see.
Yeah,
I'm showing you that these are the costs that would be to extend Sherman Street to our southern property line. So it's about $249,000, close to that. And we just, our project can't really handle those expenses right now. And I'll show you that. Here's our pro forma, and this is if we didn't pay anything for Sherman Avenue. And our investors would be making about a 16% return. But if we add that $248,000 onto the project, which really can't bear, then we go down to about a 3% return, and we couldn't afford to do that. Our investors would not be interested. So what we're asking of the city is that we don't impose any public improvements onto Lot 1 that we're developing first, other than putting in streetlights, sidewalks, and trees along the street. And then at such time as we develop Lot 2, then we would pay 1/2 of the costs of extending Sherman Avenue. Typically, when you develop, you know, each parties on each side of the street get assessed for the development. So, you know, we're happy to pay our 1/2 of those costs, but we'd like to avoid having any kind of payment or security for this payment on Lot 2 until the time that we develop it. We, as I showed you earlier, our investors have just given us enough money to pay for the Little Mines development, and we've got this surplus property that we're going to have to try to market or find another user for. So that's what we're asking of the city, just to help us out, delay having us pay for the costs of the Sherman Avenue extension until such time as we develop Lot 2. And we're entering into a development agreement with the city. And I think the main thing in the development agreement, if we can agree to delay those Sherman Avenue extension costs until we do Lot 2, then we would just be negotiating a stormwater drainage agreement between lots 1 and 2.
Yeah, back up right now. I just want to see, go back to that where you show where you trying to, go back to the, one more time. Come on back, up to where you see, sort of lot line where it's coming back out the second tour. Right, no, back, right there.
Okay.
So right now you be coming out 24th Street, right?
Yes.
So what is this yellow, what are those?
That's where Sherman Avenue would be extended from where it currently terminates, that driveway to the Great Lakes Credit Union.
The developer would only be required to extend Sherman Avenue to his southern lot line. He would not have to extend Sherman Avenue to Saratoga.
Okay, he will not.
No.
Okay, I
The
just- I
code,
was
the
trying to
code, the code will only require Sherman Avenue to be extended to the southern end of the parcel, which is north of the housing that's neighboring on Saratoga.
Okay, 'cause that's a house, I was just saying, that's a Navy right there.
What's happening right now is that,
Help me understand.
we were coming to the developer and saying we want to see, since they have that entire parcel,
Right.
to extend the road out to where the Navy's property starts at, which is just to the north of those houses.
Yes.
And we had asked them to extend it out. They're saying that, being that, their main purpose is to bring in Little Mines Daycare Center.
Right.
Which is the road that's already established.
Right.
Okay? And so they've come to us and asked, for, relief on that, basically. Now, and we have talked about this, and I think, Alderman Markham has been also involved, and I'm in agreement to it. I have no problem with that, but he has to come to council to get the approval. He can't, because of the agreement, the way we have it set right now, he's gotta come back to this council that says,
Right.
Is that feasible for you guys to allow him to do that?
Okay.
So, and I just say that I'm in favor of it. The road that exists right now is an improved road. It has curb gutters, I think, on it as we speak. Where Little Mines would sit at. If we as a city, and I think this is part of what I've worked with the developer, saying if we put that road in ourselves, then if that parcel of land that does get developed, we would capture that, we would have that money reimbursed back to us. If we wanted to put that stretch from,
That yellow, all the way to that.
well,
second-
up to the housing, because I think Starbucks would have to do the other part. Where it's on Great Lakes property.
Okay,
So I think
Yeah, help them
our
out.
property goes to about right here.
okay,
And that these, you have the backyards to the Navy housing.
yes,
Our property line kind of lines up with this one right here.
okay. And that's, that Arby's right there, it's Arby's right there.
That's
right?
Arby's.
Yes.
but-
Yeah, okay, that's why I was trying to,
Mhm.
okay,
And right now, as he spoke, that, we are trying to negotiate a Starbucks there also, where the housing is at, actually.
right,
So it would be up to them to put that part of the road in, where the houses is at.
yeah,
They-
but I'm
they have
houses
to do
right
the-
there by that,
The demolition, and the only other part of that is that, if Starbucks was to come in, where they would have to tie in would be further down by Little Mines. They would have to run, water and sewer
from there.
from there back up to north to where they tie into Little Mines.
Okay,
So that would, that'd be on Starbucks dime
Well,
also.
Someone has to connect, straighten the utilities.
yeah,
And it's either got to come from the south north or from the north south.
South, one or the other.
It's got to connect somehow.
yeah,
according to the city code, the obligation is on the person who owns the adjacent property. That's the default rule.
Okay.
The developer is asking you to give him a break, to limit what he's required to do until
they do the other.
until the
Lot two.
future. But if the middle doesn't develop before Starbucks does, then someone's got to fill in the middle.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
As long as they me.
Well, it's got to be somebody though.
Okay, well, I understand what you're saying. Now, I thought he was talking about, he wanted us to build that whole road down there, 200, okay. I don't see no problem with that myself.
Just have a small development that really can't handle all those expenses, but later
Right.
on, when we develop a lot too.
Two? Yeah.
I think we'd be fine with paying our share.
Okay.
Did your pro forma showing the 3% return include a
Yes,
recapture?
sir.
Include a recapture?
No. No, we would put that onto the lot two.
That's what a recapture would do.
So just, our current pro forma just has all the development costs for the little mines, you know, permitting and cap fees, anything else that is a normal development, but we don't have any recapture in that pro forma.
Alderman Markin, you look at that, it's in your ward there, what do you?
Had discussion with the mayor and
Randy here?
the other gentlemen.
Yeah.
And I see no problem with it. I see that even if they, at this time, do not develop that part, that piece,
Yeah.
if the agreement or the working with Starbucks comes in,
Right.
you're going to accumulate sales tax with that and with Little Mine.
Yeah, right.
That if the city had to complete that street, we would still be able to recoup from
Real estate, yeah.
Little Mines, but we would still, in real estate and sales tax, accumulate enough to cover that,
Okay,
I believe.
okay. I just want to ask,
Because it looks large on
yeah,
here,
it looks large on there, that's why.
but it's not as large as it seems to be if you're actually standing on it.
Okay.
So you're gonna be getting real estate tax,
Right.
sales tax, which would help us
And get-
to develop that,
And
then recoup the money from
And
that.
then the people's coming in, bringing
Right.
kids, they
And
be
it's,
stopping by.
it's gonna be access for the parents to come out,
They
to
might-
Saratoga.
Right.
Instead of coming on 24th, which would be more or less difficult to do.
Okay.
Because there's no light there.
Right,
But if we work with them, I think it will, turn out.
all right. I just wanted to get your, that's in your ward there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask?
We are throwing something into the pot right now because we are rededicating the street.
Right.
So that's
Correct.
0.68 acres that come back to the city.
Correct.
For the street.
Okay.
Can I clarify the scope of your request? Are you only requesting the delay of the street and utility improvements south of Lot 1? You're not requesting that we waive the security for what's associated with Lot 1, are you?
No. So that, there'd be security for installing the sidewalk, the street lights, and landscaping.
All the things that are required associated with Lot 1?
Yes.
Any more questions with the attorney? Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify what he's requesting.
Right.
There have been some ongoing deliberations, and the scope of what's being requested has evolved. And so I want to make sure I'm clear so that we can work with staff to finalize the agreement.
Okay, okay. Sounds good. Randy, we got a plan.
Thank you. We have big interest in your Twin Cities. So we're looking at, we've been talking to the HUD Properties that manages the Navy property.
Yeah, the one next to it.
So we looked at this piece right here. It's about 26 acres. And
a nice development for the city.
All right, well, you can use some water over there, right?
There's a lot of good retail growing
Well,
there.
that's water, we sell water. All right.
Well, anyway, I appreciate the chance to
You have a
Right.
hand.
come before you.
You have a hand.
Alderman January got
You
a
have a hand.
question. Hold on a second.
Hi. When this was first brought to our attention about the daycare center, I had asked a question about the accreditation of the daycare center, and I was wondering, have the owners or yourself reconsidered the accreditation for NACI and NACA?
I don't believe they have. We are taking care of
So
the
you're
real
not-
estate,
you
just
will not be
renting
a-
them the property, so
So you don't know that they'll be accredited then?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know that they're going to comply with the state requirements. There's, you know, a lot of restrictions and policies
Yeah,
that they
that's
have
all
to
he
abide
doing.
by, but I don't know about the accreditation.
I don't know. She won't know he got the money.
There's some big way you can reach out to them and get a confirmation of, have they reconsidered? Because at the last meeting, or the first and last one that they presented, they said they were not going to do accreditation. Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you. I don't have anything on the pending matters, so I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn the Economic Development Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Mayfield, second by Alderman Evans. All in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Randy, let's hope we get this finished up and finalized.
Yeah.
We look forward to seeing you on the second.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
No break in there.